Hello, everybody. This is coming in a bit late, mostly because I fell asleep and had a nap. Today it was just a hot, muggy, Alex's very weak and tired day. I had to do a bunch of adulting and get some stuff done, go out shopping, yada, yada, yada. Got to be able to clean the floors, get the supplies sort of day. And between that and lugging stuff around, I was tired. And I knew that there were some gaming events happening that we mentioned on yesterday's episode. Hey, I'll be doing a solo show today. I almost skipped doing it simply because I initially didn't see enough to talk about by myself and figured, we'll save it for the next day when I believe Ken's going to be on for the Ubisoft and all the other stuff that's happening on Saturday's show. And I would do like a recap. But then I thought, you know what? Even if this is like a 10-minute, 15-minute show, it is a recap. So there was enough that happened because I didn't realize that IGN's Summer of Gaming, that they were having their own expo. I thought that was just the umbrella title they were giving for all their live streams and their pre-shows and stuff. But no, they had their own. I knew that, that Koch Media, I guess Koch if you're Westerner, Koch if you're German or Austrian, they were having their own event because they had announced that they had a new publishing division they were creating for AAA games. So I thought, I know I'll maybe watch that. I knew that there was a Netflix thing about their partnerships on TV shows and movies and cartoons. But like there was a few other things at the Tribeca Film Fest. Like it was like the Tribeca, I guess, game focus, anything that was highly narrative and artistic they wanted to talk about. So I've gone to the respective sites for each of these to grab notes because, again, Alex was tired and I know a few games that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't remember the order that they were in. So I guess we'll sort of go first. This is from Netflix's newsroom. What did they talk about? Some surprises here. These are all properties that are from, appears to be deals with the game devs, as well as what's appearing to be a fairly lucrative, or at least potentially lucrative, Ubisoft deal. So what they showed off was a trailer for Arcane, which is a CGI TV cartoon, streaming cartoon. I think that's based on League of Legends, which looks pretty neat. Then there was, and it was sort of like a Real Steel boxing thing. So I don't know any of the lore behind that because I'm not a League player. I don't think anybody on the Twig crew is. We're not a MOBA or that style of gameplay. Like we have anything against it. It's just not our bag, right? So I'm interested in some of these games that they're making and their multimedia projects that are expanding their lore, right? So I know that they're working on some like turn-based JRPG style games and stuff. So I'll definitely give the Netflix show a watch when it launches because I think that's going to be my entry point into the lore. Even if it's not necessarily like the mainstream thing, if it gets me hyped for it, that'll be pretty sweet. This one, we were initially thought that it was not going to be very good because the animation for the game was so painstakingly made and they showed off some concept art that didn't look good. Well, it went back to the drawing board. Now it looks fantastic, and that's the Cuphead show. So they've moved the animation style maybe from the 1920s and 30s up to a 40s-ish look, somewhere in a hybrid there, because it's so hard to, like, they didn't use, like, filtered effects, really, when they made the animation for that game to make it look like old-timey film. They actually drew in their own manual dirt and noise and stuff, and it's just too much to do. The announcement they showed was that I think it's a bad guy or it's some sort of antagonist, is being played. Character's name is King Dice, and it's being played and voiced by Wayne Brady. And anybody that's under 50 and maybe even like higher in age than that, it would be hard to find. But if you're a big music buff and movie buff and just performance, and you like sort of learning about music history, you'll know some of the jazz stuff from the 20s and 30s before the crooners became popular, and then we had modern pop music sort of come out of that, and blues and everything. Well, anyway, he comes out and he's singing a I would say, what do you call that? a copyright, a legally distinct version in that they changed some of the lyrics, but it's the same basic song what is it called? I think it's Minnie the Moocher from Cab Calloway. He even comes in dancing and doing the moves like Cab Calloway, and it is almost spot on. You would almost think that they rotoscoped over top of actual film footage of Cab Calloway doing the song. But it's Wayne Brady singing. So I initially thought, maybe for this kind of character, it sounds like a Keith David would be the best kind of voice. But then I realized, no, the singing voice, though, Wayne Brady does it perfectly. And there's a trailer for that you're going to want to check out. It looks great. It looks way better than I was expecting, and I think anybody was expecting with the initial concept art that had leaked earlier. So they obviously went with a big change in the style. And it's going to be probably an expensive show to make. Now, they did announce that there is a new Castlevania series, so that the main Castlevania one, I think it's 3 seasons they've done so far? I think that's ending. I still haven't watched it, so I'll have to catch up. But there is a new series centered around Richter Belmont, set against the backdrop of the French Revolution. So, Castlevania fans on Netflix, you got something more to look forward to. Then there was a Captain Laserhawk Blood Dragon remix, which is a CG anime-ish sort of style Ubisoft adaptation based in the I guess it was Far Cry had that spin-off game, Blood Dragon. Looks neat. And then they showed a teaser for a new Splinter Cell TV show, cartoon CG. And it looks like an older Sam Fisher, and looks like they've designed the model to look a fair bit like Michael Ironside. So maybe he's coming out of retirement to voice the character, because it looks like Michael Ironside's 70 or 71. And Sam Fisher's always been sort of younger, late 30s, 40s. But they've aged him up to look like he's in his late 50s, which maybe would suit his voice more now. So, kind of neat. They also did say that there's a Far Cry animated series coming, but it was just a tease. It was a title saying it's in production. Then there was, what was it? Stranger Things with Smite crossover. Yeah. Then they showed off The Witcher, showing that the new season is coming, and they had some teases there. I still have to watch The Witcher season 1. And then there was an announcement that they're making a WitcherCon, like a convention to show off new stuff later on in the summer. So that will be something to maybe keep track of. They did a cast reveal of the Resident Evil. I think was it I don't know. Was it the Raccoon City one? I sort of was dozing in and out when I was watching, but that's sort of it. It was just sort of an update. There's a lot of properties there, but the most interesting one is probably the partnership with Ubisoft. So that is something that we'll have to be checking out as more information comes. Maybe I know they had a big lucrative deal for years with DreamWorks. Maybe they're trying to cultivate that with the gaming properties now. Then there was, what else? The Tribeca was the one that came after that, and it was the Tribeca Games Festival. Some titles that, again, artistically, I was like, cool, they're not games that I would necessarily play. The big one here that I'm going to mention, and maybe Ken and other people, if they like it, they'll talk about other games, but there was a stop-motion game that I thought was neat. It's called, was it Harold Halibut? I think that's what it was. I did make a note of this. It's set in this other world, just like a colony on a water planet, and it's claymation with hand sculpted sets and everything. Really neat. We'll see how that goes. But the big one was they showed off Kenna, Bridge of Spirits, and they showed a little more gameplay. It has a bit of a Pikmin vibe where you're rescuing different spirits by solving puzzles that are physics-based or moving things around. Think Breath of the Wild, Zelda-type stuff. And you sometimes need a certain amount of spirits to move the heavier objects. So there's an order and a finesse to how you solve the puzzles. Then there's the combat, obviously. And they did mention there's about 40... They made basically a 45-minute movie. And that's what the game is. But as far as plotline goes... And then the rest of the game is the actual gameplay of the fighting and then the puzzle solving and the just exploration aspects. So based on that, I'm thinking, you might think that's short. That's probably about a 5 to 8 hour game, which is decent for the fact that it's a budget title being released at, they haven't said an exact price, but it's not going to be like your $60 or $80 or $70 US. It's probably going to be somewhere in the 40-ish to 50. So at that price point, it's definitely good, especially if it's going to be a very high quality production. Let me see here. Was there anything else that really caught my eye? The Tribeca. They showed off more for Sable, which is that game that we saw at the kickoff event yesterday. That looked a bit like a cel-shaded Nausicaa game, which is pretty cool. They showed a little more, nothing too fancy. There was also, what else was there here? Brief show of the 12 Minutes game. That's the one where you're looking at the top down of an apartment and you're trying to stop like a murder from happening, and it resets. You have 12 minutes to sort of try to figure out how to get out, and the more it resets, the more you're going to be able to figure out what to do. That has been shown, I think, for a couple of years now, and it looks pretty neat. And that was sort of it for them. Like it was all trying to show off things that have a good narrative style and direction, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see where they go. I was surprised to see Canada there. That, I guess, because there isn't, as of right now, an announced Sony event, so it would make sense that they'd want to show it off, especially since the team producing it originally started as like commercials, but also cinema, like actual movie special effects house. So yeah, it's probably connected more to the Tribeca that way. And then the what was else? The Koch Media E3 showcase. This is the one where I started watching it, and then I was like, I'm going from a nap because I can't pay attention. Nothing wrong with what they were showing. I just couldn't stay awake. I was tired. So I came back and watched the trailers individually. This was where they announced Prime Matter. They announced it yesterday, but Prime Matter, they showed off more, is the new publishing label they created. So they showed off, what was it here? There's a little bit more on Painkiller. So that was neat. They don't have a whole lot on it yet, so they said, it's going to be released with information later on this year. There's a horror game with no title. It just says untitled game right now. It has a Resident Evil sort of Alone in the Dark vibe, which looks kind of cool. Kingdom Come Deliverance. I don't know, not really my bag, but sure. There's one that has a working title called Final Form, sci-fi first-person shooter, and it has very alien, like Geiger-esque sort of feels to it. Kind of neat looking. There's one called Dolmen, which is very H.P. Lovecrafty. Again, there's a lot of horror-based sci-fi games that this company's producing. King's Bounty 2, which we've already heard about. Scars Above, third-person action horror. You're playing as a character that's attempting to survive on an alien planet. Think Returnal, but not necessarily a bullet hell loop, roguelike loop sort of thing. Maybe a little more of a hybrid traditional style game. Then there was Encased, which is a dystopian sci-fi game. You are joining one of 5 divisions within this corporation called Cronus, where they discover this sort of biodome sort of thing, and you're researching it, and it looks kind of quirky and interesting. Echoes of the End, fantasy RPG, which they showed a bit, but not a whole ton yet. Again, all with pretty unique and interesting art styles. They may still, a lot of them, be horror sci-fi, but they have a different look for each one. Then there's The Last Oracrew, which is an action RPG, very narrative, story-based, choices-based game. There's some co-op gameplay they announced with it. And then they sort of finished with Payday 3, which I don't think I've played a bit of Payday 1. I don't think I've played Payday 2. But they did announce that it's scheduled to be released in 2023, so they really didn't have much to show. But this is sort of their, I guess, prestige, because they also own Deep Silver, and they have other publishing houses. But I don't know if they're going to move every game here. I think the idea is anything that's an A or a AAA title, like high budget game, will get released under the Prime Matter logo, and then maybe the more indie, smaller titles will still go under Deep Silver. I'm not sure. I guess that's sort of how they're positioning themselves. And then I found out that IGN had their own expo because it was already started when I got up for my nap, and I went, okay, well, God, I got to catch up. So what the heck is this? So they talked about, there was a bunch of trailers, some stuff that I think has already been, like it was said world premiere, but like maybe we'd heard about it, but we hadn't seen the trailer for. It was a Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, which I thought was just a lame looking game, but then I've been told now that there's a lot more to it, so maybe I'll have to check that out. World War Z Aftermath. I always try to be positive, but I'm kind of over zombies right now. It's got to be really good, like really, really good for me to get interested. But if that's what you like, then have at it. Audio Clash Battle of the Bands. Maybe. Court Keeper. Not a big base building sandbox game. That's not my thing. There was one called Bramble the Mountain King. That looks cool and creepy as all hell. Very like Northern European creepiness involved. Like I got a very, very Grimm's like fairy tales and Nordic folklore type of feel from it. Looks cool. Survival Machine. Again, when I say meh or nah, it's not that I'm dismissing the game, it's that it hasn't pulled me in yet, so if we get review copies and it turns out to be good, then fantastic. Blacktail, again, meh. Arcade 1-Up showed up a couple new cabinets, those are always cool, but we're probably never going to get one for review because they're expensive, heavy, and it's hard to ship to Canada, and in my apartment, I could maybe fit one of them, but I also can't afford to spend that kind of money on it. Not on a fixed income on disability. No, thank you. They look fantastic, and they should keep up all the great work. That's amazing. But not all of us can afford a $500 gaming cab. So the next one was Mortal Shell. I think this was an expansion to it. Looked kind of neat. Death's Gambit, The Afterlife. Maybe. Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions. Looks bad, and it looks like a really cheap game. I'm sorry, like boxing games either make it super arcadey or make it super realistic. This somewhere in between thing was sort of uncanny valley for me. So prove me wrong, game. Then there was the Forgotten City, which I had been interested in, but then it looked too scary, so I don't want to play it. There are other titles that look pretty cool, but nothing that really caught my eye until we hit an update on Skatebird. It finally got at least a release date. It says August 12th. That's the Tony Hawk sort of style game, but you're playing as a little sparrow type bird. Then there was Ollie Ollie World, showed off the game. It's not just the skating. There is like an RPG-ish sort of element to it where you're interacting with townsfolk and stuff. Kind of neat. I want to see a little more. There was another trailer, a cinematic trailer of Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, which from Frogwares, it's nice to sort of see an update on that. They showed more of 2 Point Campus, which had been revealed the previous day, but had gameplay released here. A little bit of Sifu, which was that martial arts game for PS4 and PS5. Lots of little things I didn't care about. Oh, here's one. Unpacking. This is a game. I don't know if there's a time limit or anything. I think it's just an interactive like stress reliever, as far as I can tell. It's like a puzzle game maybe, where it gives you a scenario in a room and you get boxes and you unpack things and you have to find the most optimal way to unpack everything and put it in its right place. Set to very like mellow music. That seems like something that would be great to unwind from a stressful day. Like I wouldn't want to actually unpack an actual apartment, but doing it in a game is a little easier. Then there was a bunch more indie titles that, again, didn't really speak to me. I got to maybe see a little more, maybe play them a little bit. And that was sort of the highlight. That was it for there might have been some other games talked about or released trailers in between, but that was everything today. So it was more than I expected, especially since they were blasting out trailers at the IGN one. But yeah, like it's that's it. There wasn't anything overly spectacular today. This is sort of the true day zero, whereas yesterday was day 0-1 with a couple big explosive news stories. I'm expecting some cool stuff tomorrow when we end up covering. What is the schedule? I know it's a ton of stuff. Even though Sunday, that's where everybody has all eyes on Sunday. Saturdays is... Oh, yeah, and there was a New World deep dive today, and who cares? I'm sorry. Actually, sorry, not sorry. Who cares? There is the Guerrilla Collective 2 tomorrow. That's, I guess, the first thing. It says, as of when I'm recording this, 13 hours from now, it says trailers. I don't know what they're going to show. There may be some more indie titles. Then the Wholesome Direct, which is in 15 hours. Be kind of neat. I don't know, again, if it's going to have it's going to have exclusive footage, some game reveals, probably nothing too major. But then we have our Ubisoft Forward, then the Upload VR, Devolver Digital, Gearbox. It's a pretty stacked day. So I think we're going to do one show or one podcast tomorrow to recap everything there. And then on Sunday, Sunday is Xbox and Bethesda, then Square Enix, Back 4 Blood, PvP. Well, that might be when we finally take a break. And what we'll do is we'll talk about Xbox, Bethesda, and Square Enix, and then we'll do a second sort of episode on the PC gaming show, future gaming show, and if there's anything else that happens during that time. Because they tend to be fairly long, those shows, and there's probably going to be some cool stuff shown off there. And then the next day, which is Monday, is Take-Two Interactive, Limited Run Games, Capcom Showcase, and that's going to do it. So we'll do one on Monday. I don't know if I'm going to have anybody else on for that. I'm assuming if Capcom shows us something crazy, Birdman's going to want to get involved. Birdman's going to try to be on for Sunday's show as well. At least one of them, probably the Xbox one first. He might want to skip the PC one. But then Tuesday is the Nintendo Direct plus Treehouse, Bandai Namco, and then there's a was it the Play for All showcase? What is that? Nah, we're not going to watch that. I'm sorry. But Nintendo and Bandai, that we'll do one on there. I'm pretty sure we can get some more people rounded up to talk about that. And then we'll do, I guess, a roundtable maybe on the weekend. It might come a little later just because we want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to see everything. And then we'll see what happens with Sony and everybody else that gets their stuff announced later on in the year. So that's going to be our coverage plan. Also, I want to note there isn't going to be a main Twig show this Monday because too busy. We normally record on the Saturdays and Sundays to get everything together, and we got too much to do. We got 3 or 4 episodes in the span of when we normally record one. So we are going to have a probably a Turd or Treasure review show, which is it's going to have some of the elements that would have been in the regular Twig show, but we're not going to have geek news or weird news. It's just too much to curate and grab and talk about. And all the news is going to be gaming stuff, and we're doing that all in the prototype right now anyway. So we are going to technically skip a week on the main show, but all the reviews that are be included are going to be there anyway. As far as what we have to talk about, I know Birdman's got a few reviews that he's going to be sending in and editing for maybe having me edit to put in. But as far as what am I working on that's going to come up later on the programming show, Nintendo sent over a review copy of the Game Builder Garage game that launched today. And they know that, we can't get... Normally, if I got something like that, that's like a smaller title that I can really dig into on a Friday, we would try to have the review out for the Monday main show. But I told them, hey, it's going to be probably next Friday or next Monday because E3, and they're perfectly cool with that. So that also will give us time to decompress and check it out. So we'll be looking at that. I know that there are some movies that came in from Mill Creek that we're going to be looking at, like some DVDs of Problem Child and Sonic Boom on Blu-ray and a few others. Then there's also there is, what else? I think there's another indie title we were sent. Yes. The Persistence Enhanced on PS5. So be checking that out. That'll probably be next week. Depends on how much time I have this week to check it out. But yes, that's what's coming from me. There might be some more stuff. Oh, and this week's whatever show comes out on Monday, there's going to be a review of a new PC/multimedia gaming speaker set from Creative Labs, which is pretty neat. That's also Bluetooth enabled with a remote, which is something that I found PC speakers have always lacked that they really could use. So I'll be digging into that. In fact, I've been watching a lot of these trailers and stuff using them, and then when there's like the big shows, I'm jumping over to the TV and putting on the surround set or the headset for that. And I guess that is about it. It ended up being longer than I expected, but there was a lot more to talk about than I initially thought. I thought it was like, 3 or 4 trailers, but no, there's a lot that was revealed and talked about in this not E3, but also not Game Fest. Like, this is the void, the day zero, the day infinity. So I will be back tomorrow with coverage of Ubisoft Forward and everything else happening that day with Ken from This Anime podcast. And maybe... No, Birdman's probably not going to be on that one. But we're going to have at least a collaboration, so it's not just me yelling in your ear this whole time again tomorrow. And then Sunday, Birdman should be on with us for at least 3 of us. Maybe we'll try to grab somebody else. The round table is going to have 3 or 4 people on it for sure eventually. So that's it. I'll talk to everybody tomorrow.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.